what problems they cause. And you gave a good analogy in relation to shoplifting, which is topical with the CSO figures. How it's difficult to investigate these things. It's pretty clear that these crimes are on the increase, and it's ludicrous that it's more difficult for you to investigate these. So just explain that for me.
Yeah, the three-county model, this association is on record for a number of years now in relation to the OP model. And what the OP model is doing is it is centralising resources, particularly in rural areas, and resources are being moved into centralised bigger stations, and then they're covering outlying stations, and outlying stations are being left without their Garda members. This is particularly prevalent in the three-county divisions of Mayo, Scammon, Longford, and Cavan, Monaghan and Louth. We saw a review of the three-county model last year, and that disbanded Donegal, Sligo, Leitrim, and Kilkenny, Waterford and Carlow. And that review decided that that policing structure was not fit for them counties. And we have to ask the question, why is it fit for Mayo, Scammon, Longford, which is a huge geographical area? Our membership on the ground are saying it is unmanageable. In relation to Cavan, Monaghan and Louth, the population density is lopsided over towards the east coast of that, and large areas, the resources will be focused obviously where the population is, and large areas, rural areas in Cavan and Monaghan will be left alone. We saw a recommendation from the Policing Authority 2 weeks ago there in the report that this should be looked at, and the Garda Commissioner and the Minister for Justice are coming to conference tomorrow, and the President will be putting direct questions to them as to the rationale and justification for leaving two divisions in the three-county model.
Is that the reason why people in rural communities are saying we don't have guards? Just explain that then, please.
Yes, well, guards in smaller stations, guards are attached to that station officially, but they're being moved into the bigger headquarters to provide cover and emergency cover. And unfortunately, with the way the Garda resources are at the moment, that's a daily occurrence now at this stage. And what is happening is guards are losing touch with the community, and that's the theme of the conference as well, is disconnecting from communities. And you know, guards want to be and need to be, and the public want them to be out amongst their communities, particularly in the rural areas and the small towns. Like all the OP model, the OP model can work in urban areas, but the same model cannot work in urban and rural, and common sense would tell you that. And we've been calling for that for a number of years now. It's been recognised by the Justice Committee in the Dáil, and we'll be asking the Garda Commissioner to provide justification and rationale for this style of policing tomorrow here at the conference.
And the investigation management system, you have an example about if somebody steals a bottle of lemonade or a shoplifting offence in a shop?
Yes, absolutely. What has happened is there's been huge transformation in Garda Síochána over the last number of years. One of the initiatives that was brought in was the investigation management system. What this did is all crimes were now recorded on this system, and it generates jobs, which generates work for Garda Síochána members and work for sergeants and supervisors who have to check them jobs. Totally unnecessary work in our view. It was taking guards off the streets. It was a huge administration burden, and we've often gone on about that. Last year we conducted 2 workshops nationwide, and we asked members from various divisions around the country to come forward and to give their views on it. We then collated that information and we presented it to Garda management. And in fairness to Assistant Commissioner Justin Kelly, he recognised the problem and he is now dealing with it. But it shouldn't be down to an association the size of the Garda sergeants and inspectors to actually have to do that. The organisation should have recognised that. We have been on to the government, to the Department of Justice and to the Garda Commissioner for a number of years about this. And this is the problem.
So give us an example of it, just an example.
An example is, I suppose, a shoplifting incident. If someone went in and took a bottle of Lucozade from a shop, for instance, what would happen is the guard would have to go back, log that onto the computer system, and that would generate jobs. It would depend on the incident, but that could generate 10, 20, 30, 40 jobs. It depends, every incident is different. And they were totally unnecessary for a very minor a crime like that, which would previously have been dealt with in an hour or two, and the guard would have been back on the street dealing with the public, providing the high visibility that the public want on our streets.
So that feeds in as well to the criticisms of, for example, the retailers who are saying they can't get guards to investigate crimes. They don't seem to care about shoplifting and things like that.
Well, the guards are stuck in stations all the time. It's not only the IMS system; it's a whole raft of new new policies and new procedures. And what's happening is the guards is just turned into a statistical monster. It's recording computer information all the time instead of out on the beat. The public want people out in the street. The shopkeepers want the guards out in front of their shops, walking up and down to deter criminals from carrying out this sort of activity. And that's what we need to get back to basics here. The bread and butter policing, out in the street, meeting the public. And that's also a preventative measure. If you look at the UK has now turned into a reactive police force rather than a proactive police force. The guards were always a proactive police force for the last 100 years in this country. And we need to keep that model and get back to it because it's slipping away from us. And it has served us well over the last 100 years.
Can I ask about the recruitment and retention crisis? How big of a focus will that be over the next couple of days, and what is the reality on the ground?
The reality is that we have just short of 14,000 guards at present. I mean, the population has increased 650,000 since 2017. We had a similar, or 2007, we had a similar number of guards in 2007. That 650,000 increase in the population, that's an increase of, it's a very diverse population now. There's huge demands on the guards. Really with the guards, to operate correctly now, the optimum number of guards required is around 18,000. Operational Gardaí. That is not Garda staff, support administration staff, that is operational Gardaí, and our association is calling for that. The problem is we cannot get there because An Garda Síochána is not an attractive career for young people. We have seen over the last couple of years, year on year, rises in the amount of resignations. If the current trends for this year, we saw the Commissioner's report to the Policing Authority, and if them figures continue on this year, we are looking at a 20% increase in resignations. We also have, come the latter part of the year, we are going to have a raft of retirements. That's one of the reasons is because there was fast recruitment 30 years ago, but a lot of them people are leaving early. And the question that has to be asked, and the question the government have to ask themselves here is, why is that? Why are these people leaving early? And as well as that, why can they not get young people in? We saw the Minister speak about 6,000 people applied for the guards. 40% of that 6,000 were between the 35 to 50-year bracket. That is a once-off, our association believe. They are people who probably just didn't get in time, and that is not going to happen next year. So you are looking at 3,500 people applied for the guards. It was 5,000 last year. The government need to address this issue. We have been going into the government for the last 2 to 3 years, telling them about this crisis. They have done very, very little to make the jobs an attractive career. Things like the pay and the pensions. The job was always seen, the An Garda Síochána was seen as a permanent pensionable job. That was the big attraction to it. Since 2013, they're going to suffer financial hardship. The pension is only about 13,000 when they retire. There's also the issue of social media is a big issue for these, and the phone in their face scenario all the time. The assaults, the intimidation and the abuse is on the rise as well. As well as that, people are seeing young guards leaving in their droves, and young people talk to each other and they're saying, why is that happening? And we need to address this. There needs to be mandatory sentencing, and we'll be calling again on the Minister for mandatory sentencing for assaults on Gardaí. It's no good increasing a sentence when we see week on, week out around the country people that assault Gardaí walking out with suspended sentences. And we'll be calling on the Minister tomorrow to do something about this. We need action here on this.
Just there's a saying in the guards, we often hear it, that the job is worse than it was before. We won't say the specifics of it, but is the job worse than it was last year?
Well, obviously with the falling resources and the increased demand, less have to do more. And there is a feeling on the ground amongst the guards, particularly in relation to all the new procedures and the new policies and the fact that you cannot make a mistake in the guards, which is a big problem for members, is they don't receive the training to carry out these new procedures and policies correctly. They then go out on the street. Every incident is different. Every scenario is different, and people make mistakes. And we have to move into the space where they accept that mistakes will be made. I'm talking about minor mistakes here. I'm not talking about serious incidents. But we have to accept that mistakes be made. They have to move more towards the lessons learned concept, rather than this constant rush to discipline. It's discipline, discipline, discipline. And young members see this and they go, I've enough of this, I'm out of here. You know, and that has to be addressed. That's how it does.
Is Drew Harris listening to you though? Because you've been saying this now for a number of years and there's no movement and it looks like the job is worse than it was last year.
Yeah, well, Drew, we have good engagement with Drew Harris, and he does give us an avenue to progress our issues. We will be talking to him tomorrow here, and yes, we do need him to listen to us. You know, Drew Harris is mandated by the Commission of the Future on Policing report as well, and Drew Harris will say that to you as the Garda Commissioner. He has been given a job to do by government, and he has to carry this out. We need government here. Government need to address a lot of these matters, so they do.
You talk about incentivising young people to join, but I mean, like every time they pass out, most of them end up going to Dublin and then there's no accommodation and they end up in Kildare or Wicklow. It's not going to be an attractive job until there's accommodation for Gardaí.
Absolutely, and providing accommodation to Gardaí is not a new thing, and one of our motions is about the Commissioner providing accommodation to Gardaí. Over the last 100 years, guards have always been provided with accommodation. It has died out in the last 20 years, but it is something now that is very relevant, particularly for young people coming out of Templemore. On the pay that they're on, how are they supposed to get rent a property or buy a property eventually in Dublin? They just will not be able to afford it. They're commuting from as far away as an hour and a half away and you know, very long days, and no young person will sustain that. And there's far more attractive careers. You know, they pay a lot more. Pay is a big thing for these people as well, and that needs to be addressed, the starting pay for entrance into An Garda Síochána. But they're travelling way too long, and you know, it's not good for young people, and they won't accept it anymore. And that is a reason that a career in An Garda Síochána is not attractive now.
Happy with that?
Yep.
Yeah.